Right.
inferred earlier. And this is with the drought. And so because we are now in a drought, the big question is, should we even do this project this summer? And installing a brand new lawn in the middle of a drought, A, the optics, it doesn't look great. B, is it responsible of us as a town? And then also it takes a lot of water. There might be a month or two where we're actually not using much water during the beginning. We'll turn off the water when we're getting ready for construction. There'll be no water up to when we put the lawn in. But once the lawn goes in, for the first 3 months, they're gonna actually be putting the contractor actually is responsible for the lawn. And one of the ways they make sure that lawn survives is they use a lot of water. And so one problem we also have is it could be as of tomorrow that MMWE tells us we can only water lawns 1 day a week. That looks like it could be coming down for everybody. We do have wells. We have 2 wells out there that haven't been used, I think, since at least 2005. But the wells have what's called a very low transmissivity, which means they don't produce a lot of water. They can be used for the existing lawn and will help us sustain the lawn. Hopefully, will enable us to not let it go brown. But we are looking at, as of next Monday, just so everybody knows, is turning down the water on all park lawns throughout San Anselmo and going to drought mode. I don't know if you've been up to Phoenix Lake, any of you, or been walking around, but I have never seen it this low. And I've been here 16 years. Apparently someone said they haven't seen it this low since the 70s. So the thinking is, and this hasn't been decided yet, I'm just kind of, you guys are getting heads up, even before I talk to the council. But the thinking is that, we may have to delay this for a year. And it's unfortunate. I do think, obviously the skate park's moving, Millennium Playground's moving. I think we can still do the path, and we can still do maybe even, and I don't know if you guys know this, I'm thinking, it looks like we might have the bandwidth to do the parking lot too. So.
Which parking lot? The front one?
The front one, the one at Log Cabin. I don't know if you
Okay.
consider the front or the back. I consider that the front because I live at this end. But
The other one needs to be redone too. Just
yeah,
voicing that.
this one has a higher, well, I hate to say it, a higher liability, and yeah. But you're right, they both need to be done. So the hope is we can get the front one, the larger one done. How about that?
So just to kind of follow up on what Sean described with respect to the water situation, I discussed this with Peter Arnold, not in connection with the drought restrictions, but just in terms of the water that's going to be needed. And one of the reasons that we were going to fence the fields, fence them off, is so that through the winter, with hopefully the adequate rain, the roots would take hold. And he really felt that that was critical for the long-term performance of that turf, that it get adequate rain from the moment the turf is rolled out and then for the next 4 or 5 months. So, I mean, the last thing we want to do is spend all this money and we need to do it all at one time. Remember, putting in all new irrigation, we're improving the drainage, and we're rolling out new turf. It all needs to be done at one time, so it's cost efficient. But the last thing we want to do is do this and then have the turf die because of lack of water. And my understanding, at least the preliminary draft from MMWD, is that the 1 day is going to apply to municipalities as well as private residents. So, Sean and I talked about this earlier. We don't have to make a decision now, but we are going to have to make a decision soon because bids have a time by which they have to be accepted so that the work could begin in August. Sean, what do you think that is? Do you think we can push out the decision for, say, 30 days roughly?
Yeah, I talked to Scott. He was trying to remember if it's either 30 or 60 days, and it sounds like it's really more on the contractor. So if we don't honor that timeline, they could say their bid's no longer valid.
Right.
And so, but that probably wouldn't happen. If we're going to go, I pushed it off. We were going to do it at the next council meeting, which is in a week. But I pushed it off to the one after that to let the council know what we're thinking.
Okay,
Can I ask a
Okay.
quick question, Rob?
sure.
Is the reason why, I mean, look, how long would the bid be valid for?
Well,
In other words, if we're
We
putting
have
this
to
up
double
for,
check that. It's either 30 or 60 days, but to be honest with you, it's up to the contractor. If the contractor decides to honor the bid 3 months from now, we've actually delayed projects before for 6 months, and the contractor said, yes, they'll honor the dollar amount. It's up
Yeah.
to them at the end of the day.
okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was going for, Sean. Like, how long is that bid valid in terms of like, once we accept the bid, then is it good for a year if we want to delay for a year?
Yeah, we could try to negotiate that with them and see if they want to wait a year. I find it unlikely because nobody knows what the costs of materials and labor are going to be a year from now.
Yeah.
We've delayed stuff for like, I think up to 6 months before, but we could try, we could ask them and see if they're willing to, that's not a bad, suggestion. And if they're willing to do that, I mean, it definitely did, even though I'm a little bit nervous about how low it is.
I am
Um,
too.
Yeah, but if they come in at that bid, or even if there's a few change orders, it would give us more wiggle room to do other things too.
Yeah, just to give people an idea of the range. I mean, this one came in at 454,000, and then the next lowest was 615,000, and then the one above that was 649. So we had three inside our 675 budget number, which was encouraging. But when you see one that is that much lower, at least it raises some questions.
Yeah.
And I know that Sean and Peter Arnold are looking into that. Okay, any further questions on that? So at the moment, we'll have to see what MMWD does. I think we have a pretty good idea.
I have a question, Rod.
Yes, of course.
Sean, I've worked on state low bids and stuff before, and I'm without trying to cast any aspersions on anybody. Are you sure that these people have dealt with the scope of this project adequately?
So Peter Arnold, who's an expert in this field as far as doing lawns like this or parks and stuff, he's gone through the numbers. He's done our due diligence. We were going to have him or Scott reach out and to references, but it looks like they have done this type of work. One of the things I didn't do myself, and sometimes I kind of look at where they're from, but this is just usually when we've gotten low bids like this, oftentimes it's been when the economy is slow and we get people from like Vacaville or further out coming down to bid on projects, and they've actually done really good work. But right now the economy is kind of hot when it comes to construction and things like this. So it's a little bit, abnormal. And we are going to look more into it, Vance. So.
Thank you. The other thing I'd just like to throw in there is from the standpoint of being a supplier, I think we should try and let them know as soon as we can if we're going to pull from the project. I would try not to string them along for long.
Yeah. Well, I want to just go through more of like looking at the references and also talking to MMWD. This just like in the last couple of days, we were going, is this something we should really be doing with everything that's happening with water right now?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I have a question, John.
Yes.
Just to clarify, who is the decision-making body on whether or not we move forward with this? Is it the town council? Is it us?
It's kind of a combination. So usually staff, and usually my staff or myself as a public works director would make a recommendation to council, and the council can go either way. They could agree with staff or they can disagree. But usually I try to give them my professional opinion, and it's supposed to be regardless of what the council wants to do. I'm supposed to give them my opinion as an engineer and as a public works director what I think is best for the town, and they can go either way though. So they could agree or they could disagree.
Thanks.
Sean, in your experience, does MMWD ever make exceptions where there are unusual circumstances, such as we might be able to argue in this case?
They might. I've worked with them on other things. One idea was, well, if we can offset the water with the well water, maybe that will help. And also, long term, if we have a whole new irrigation system, our current irrigation system breaks all the time.
Right.
It's got older heads that use more water, and they're spread out, not as good as a system that's currently designed. So in theory, we could actually show that we probably save a lot of water with the new irrigation system. But I'm not sure, with the way things are, I'm hearing that this is probably one of the worst droughts since the 70s.
Right. Yeah, I know. And they're saying that this year is the worst year in 90 plus years.
Wow.
And
I didn't hear that one. So.
Yeah, the thing that's remarkable about this turf really won't go in until September or thereabouts. And in a normal year, we would normally have rain beginning in late October and then through the winter. But we have no way of predicting whether we're going to have a rainy winter or whether we're going to have a winter similar to this current year. So it really is. It's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
No question. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Sean on this issue? The fields? All right. So Sean, what we're going to do is let's move the path. We're going to move that up so that you can talk about that for a minute. As I had described to you earlier, we're thinking of forming a path committee that isn't focused so much on the portion that you'll be addressing. It's really on the other portion, but for purposes of the Parks and Rec Commission, could you describe what you have in mind for the portion of the path from the log cabin parking lot, if you will, to the parking area by the tennis courts?
Yeah, what we're looking at doing is widening the path to about 8 to 10 feet to allow for both bikes and peds. And then also have a 2% cross slope, which is required for ADA. And then try, where there's one area where it slopes more significantly. And if we can get that to 1 in 12, then the whole path would be ADA compliant. And it looks like we have extra bandwidth right now. It looks like we have extra funding that we could use to do that path. And so I've already spoken to one contractor about paving that in the next few months. And so originally I was thinking of delaying this until after the lawn went in, but if we end up not doing that, then I might do it sooner. Obviously it would make more sense to do all the groundwork first, with the lawn, the irrigation and drainage, and all the digging, and then come in and do the path and the parking lot. But we may do it the other way around, which is not the end of the world. But I'm gonna move forward with that. That path will be repaired. It's gotten actually worse over the last few years, and it needs to be ADA compliant. So.
Okay, so would that path, it would have, what would it have? It was bike lanes for bikes in two different directions?
We may not put actual bike lanes in. We if in theory, if you actually had a bike lane, right, you'd have to, usually they're 5 feet wide, or
right.
You can go down to 4 in theory. But when you have a shared path, I think the requirement is either 8 feet for a shared path like that. And shared paths are actually really common with bikes and peds. We don't want people zooming through there on their bikes. It works now. I mean, actually, I see a lot of bikes riding on it, people walking. But we just want to make it much more user-friendly for bikes and peds. And we're going to do a better connection at the Sunny Hills end, where the fire gate is.
Yes.
What I'm looking at doing is getting rid of the fire gate and putting in a bollard there, and allowing bikes or peds to walk directly out that way into Sunny Hills right there towards the crosswalk.
Okay. Are there funds available to do that now that might not be available if it was deferred for a year?
There are funds available to do it now. I mean, in theory, the funds could be carried over because it's mostly road maintenance and Measure D money. And so those funds actually don't get absorbed back into the general fund, but there's other reasons to do it. It's actually gotten pretty bad in some areas. And so there's a lot, and we have a complete streets policy. We have an ADA transition plan, which require us to continually looking at multimodal and bringing things up to ADA compliance.
Okay. Okay. Backing up for a moment before I forget this point, on the fields, the funding that we're drawing on or the Measure A and Prop 68 funds, are those at risk if we defer this project for a year?
Not that I'm aware of, maybe Daniel,
Okay.
but I don't think so. Those funds, I think, are locked in as far as I know, and will carry over.
Okay, okay, good.
Danielle, do you know anything?
I mean, look, I mean, Measure A funds are designated for Memorial Park. And if you defer the project for a year, there is a possibility that the town council could decide to use the money elsewhere.
Yeah,
And
there's-
so then we don't have that lump sum of money to complete a project. So there's always that possibility that there could be competing interests.
Right.
And
Of course.
Yeah.
that it would go back to just kind of the town council making that decision.
Okay, but in terms of the funding, the funding sources, the county and the state, they're not at risk.
Well, they're not, but what I'm saying is the county funding goes into a Memorial Park
Right.
fund, right? So that can be dispersed on any project if something's put on hold.
Okay,
But it'll be
Okay.
up to the council to decide that, basically.
yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys have this is probably at the end of this meeting, and I could bring it up another day, but there's another park at some point I want to bring up and talk about, a project, an idea for an Eagle Scout project. So I don't know if I can bring it up now. If you
I'll
wanna wait.
schedule you on a different day, Sean.
Okay, sounds good.
We have quite a bit here, Sean, tonight.
Yeah. No worries. I just want to throw it out there.
Okay. So while we're talking about the path, and I want to welcome Ann Politzer for being here tonight. Thanks, Ann. Ann and I have been talking about it. Well, let me just back up for a moment to the master plan. The master plan for Memorial Park includes a pathway essentially around the perimeter of the park. And we've talked about that path in general terms here at the commission. And Ann has a particular interest in this path. And frankly, I have a particular interest in it as well. I've always thought that the idea of a path that kind of goes around the perimeter, that has some benches in strategic locations where we have shade, or we could put some shade structures, will encourage really people of all age, and in particular seniors, to come to the park and have a kind of a restful and delightful place to walk around and enjoy the various activities that are taking place. And the path works out, it's about 1/3 of a mile, so it's significant. So if you want to walk a mile, you take 3 nice laps around our park. But it's going to require some thought to go into kind of where benches might be placed, shade structures, shade trees, the possibility of park horse features. Those of you who may be familiar with those are various exercise stations that you see in parks. You particularly see them in parks in Europe, and they're very highly used. And I think it would be a wonderful dimension for this park. And Ann and I have had some delightful conversations about what can be done in that regard with this path. And what I would like to suggest to the commission is that we form a pathway committee, and our focus really would be primarily on those areas around the park. And then of course, Sean has already worked on the portion of the path that goes from the parking lot by the log cabin down towards the Sunny Hills Drive parking area. So, Ann, would you like to make a couple of comments about your interest in this?
Hi, thank you, Rod. Yeah, thank you, you guys. I'm so glad to be here. I walk through this park twice a day, every day, and I just love it. My kids went there when they were little. We worked on the dinosaur playground, and several years ago when Measure M was looming, I was on the committee, or the group of people that thought we should retain what we have there and keep that incredible charm that is uniquely San Anselmo. So when Measure M was defeated, it occurred to me suddenly, it's like, oh my God, well, now we got to do something about fixing the park, So it was great because Rod already had all the stuff in mind. He'd been talking to Sean, and Paul Signell, I think, went to Rod and to Steve Burdo, on the town council, and Dave Donnery, and this thing all got going. So Eileen Burke and I, who's a council member, and I have both been working on this for a while. And I am very excited about the pathway because this whole idea of a perimeter around something defines the space. You know, you need to have a container that's intentional. And as it is now, there's this meandering pathway. It's nice, but if we are able to expand that to a degree where you have this sense of place and presence within it, it'll be fantastic. And it also, I think, offers a huge opportunity for fundraising because like the playground, you know, all those bricks that are stamped with people's names, there are a jillion things on this path that we can essentially auction off, you know, benches, parkour stations, potentially. We can come up with some deliverable, you know, little token thing that's a $50 donation for a brick or a plaque or whatever. Not necessarily a yellow brick road, you know, but something like that. So it has a lot of positive upside to it in terms of the park as a whole. So I'm interested in, you know, just getting in with you guys and, you know, having you tell me what you want me to do.
Well, that's wonderful. When Ann was running for the town council, not only did she run with a great deal of energy, but she had a fabulous commitment to the park. And that's clear to me. She's somebody who's there on a daily basis. She knows it intimately. And I'm just so pleased that she's interested in being involved in this project. So with that in mind, what I would like to do is make a motion to create a pathway committee and to carry out the ideas that we have just discussed. And with that, do I hear a second?
One second,
Okay.
Ron.
All right, good. Thank you. So the motion is to create a pathway committee to look at various ideas with respect to the path that we see in the Memorial Park Master Plan. So with that motion in mind, all in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Okay, all oppose? Raise your hand. All right, appears to have passed unanimously. And now I would like to make a second motion.
Matt,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Rod.
Yeah, Danielle.
No, I was just gonna suggest that it's important that we try to do this meeting within the workday because the bandwidth of staff taking on so many committees as of late has been high. And
Difficult,
so
I know.
I would really request that we do this within work hours.
Fine. I think we can do that. We'll see that happens. So I'd like to make a second motion, and that is to appoint Ann Politzer as the chair of that committee. So do I hear a second on the appointment of? All right, thank you. I hear a second. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Oppose? And you're the new chair of the Pathway Committee, Memorial Park Pathway Committee. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I missed it. Who seconded? I was writing my notes.
I think it was Vance.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Let's see. That takes us to, let's do the skate park. Lisa, oh yeah, Lisa, you're here. Good, good, good. Sean, you're welcome to stay, but I know you have a lot going on.
I'll stick around for the skate park and then I'll.
Okay, let's do the skate park.
And
So,
Christina has pictures.
oh yes, wonderful. So Christina has pictures, and we have with us today Lisa Graham, who has been the mover on the skate park going back many, many years. If it wasn't for Lisa, we wouldn't have a skate park. If it wasn't for Lisa, we wouldn't have repairs taking place to the skate park. So with that, Lisa, do you want to give us an update on what's happened over the last, at this point now, it's 2 weeks. It's exciting.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, allowing me to come tonight. Oh, all of a sudden I'm seeing, okay, so
We
pictures.
have some photos. Yeah.
Yeah, I see the pictures. I think I sent those off to the group. There's Coach Tim in front. Tim Musselman, for those of you, I'm sure all know Tim Musselman. He's a very integral part of Park and Rec and actually was part of the original group many, many years, even before me wanting a concrete park in San Anselmo. So it was really great to see him lend a helping hand every week for 3 days, which is quite a commitment for a 4-week volunteer project. So the skate park is getting the much needed refurbishments, in some cases, complete redo of certain park components, and in other cases, fixing in place and adding on to what was already there. The park was put in 2016, and due to COVID, we were supposed to actually have these refurbishments and upgrades done prior to COVID, but unfortunately, the gentleman that we had working or scheduled to do the work kept getting more and more contractor positions. He was building the restaurant in Fairfax, and now I can't remember what the name of it is, but it was the old Tamal. And so he just kept getting pushback and pushback. And then finally, come last December, Will Hutchinson from Proof Lab said, we can take this on. And they all know each other. They're all very close. They're in the skate world, the gentleman who was supposed to do it before, but Will took it on from Proof Lab. And we've been working with Will since December to come up with, it's his design in place, with the leadership of Jeremy Tuffley, who put in the Marin City Skate Park, as well as the Mill Valley Skate Park. He was the overseer on that. And Mark Lesky, who now has gone back to his hometown, but he's quite a guru in the business in terms of designing these parks all over the country. And so people will bring him in to really come up with what will be the plan going forward. So we've gone from a smaller half pipe that didn't even have half the width to a 24 foot wide half pipe, which is really phenomenal. I mean, we're so excited because the half pipe was always like a huge selling point of that park. I mean, there's very few places in Marin that have half pipes, especially a Wooden Skate Light Pro half pipe. I mean, you've got the concrete bowls at McGinnis, but to have a true Wooden Skate Light Pro half pipe is pretty rare. And to have this thing now be almost like a double wide trailer down at the park is pretty impressive. And so they've been working for the last 2 weeks. They're now in week 3 of the work, and they anticipate coming in on schedule, which would be to finish everything by April 30th. I think the big work was really the half pipe. And then there's other various components you might see in these pictures. You'll kind of see what they do is they set up the wooden ramps and little wooden structures in the areas where they're going to be doing other either quarter pipes or rails or manual pads or fun boxes, if you will. And so there'll be points of interest around the park on the right of the half pipe from this picture to the right of it, which would be right adjacent to, it's where the old quarter pipe was and the Cook Housing apartment complex next to the tennis court. Then it will go down and there'll be another component right at the corner where it meets the baseball field and the corner of the tennis courts. And then when you come over to the other side of our fencing, which is the basketball court, baseball field area, it all will kind of do this continual loop of skating, utilizing as much of the pieces that we had, salvaging any wood that was still good, given the fact that wood has gone up in unbelievably since COVID in terms of cost. So these guys are really working within the budget. And we had already raised this funding back when we went the first time around. And this was in our skate kitty, if you will. And we did Skate Fest for the last 4 years to add to that pot, and any other monies that came in, we would just put it in there. And so we were lucky to go into this project with the budget already in place. It didn't require going out to the community to fundraise. But Will from Proof Lab really wanted to make this extra special. So he actually on his own went and got funding from Nike Skateboarding, got an additional $2,500. The guys that work at his shop in San Rafael, one of them works with Nike Skateboarding. So he, unbeknownst to us, just went and asked them for funding. And they're also going to put in an additional 5,000 into the park as well. And I know Sean, thank you, Sean, went to the town council for contingency funding. So I think in the end, this is going to be a really great upgrade for Memorial. I think on average, there's over, sometimes 50 plus kids a day. Now that kids are back in school full time at both the middle school and the high school, it's drawing more and more young people down there. So it's going to be great that it's going to be this really safe and exciting area for the kids. So we're providing, we're getting volunteers to do meals on Fridays, and I'm going down and other people are dropping bagels and drinks and beverages, and we've been putting the call out for carpenters and people with the drill skills. So yeah, it's been a really exciting last couple of weeks, and it's nice to have a report from Will that feels really positive halfway through. No problems, no issues. So that's all very exciting. I think carrying this, it's been a great asset. I think it was a pilot project in 2016, and I was very grateful to the town of San Anselmo for allowing us to move forward with this. It's had a 5-year run of success, and so we're looking hopefully to that next stage of continuing to keep skating alive and scootering and whatever. So
Yeah, well, thank you, Lisa. I must say, I've been down several times. It's exciting. There are 5 to 7 men down there working each day. And really within 3 days, they transformed it. I mean, they took apart the existing structures. They saved the wood that they were able to. They saved a lot of the skate light. And wait, if you haven't seen it, go by and look at it. That half pipe is remarkable. I think it might, Lisa, is it the biggest half pipe in Marin or close to it?
I think that's what Will was saying.
Will told me the same thing too.
Yeah. I mean, it's big. It looks fabulous.
And there's going to be 2 concrete elements, I believe, in there. And
Yes.
one of our local contractors is donating at least one of them, maybe both. I'm not sure. So.
Well, and that was a huge plus, because I guess just getting concrete to locations today is not easy. It's that scarce and is in such demand. So it was great of Ted Van Mitty to step up and do this for us.
Yeah, awesome.
And I know that Will mentioned in his report that they were really excited because I think Ted is allowing them to use his pump truck for a fraction of the cost. Isn't that right, Sean?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Maybe even free. I mean, he said he would do the box for free, and I'm getting him to help with Millennium Playground, and so he's actually been great in terms of helping the town out.
It's terrific. Anybody have any questions for Lisa? Yeah, Christina.
I just had something to add. The
Sure.
Parkside preschool kids have been going every day to check on the work that's being done. And they go every day. They brought them some snacks and some Gatorade, and the volunteers have been calling them the foreman. So when they get there, they're like, "Oh, you guys, the foreman's here," and the kids love it. They talk
It's
about it.
fabulous.
My kid, at least, is like all excited about the work that's going on down there.
It's
So
it's just
really
great.
cute.
I
Well,
love to hear that. I mean, that fills my heart, because I know when I've gone down, because I walk a lot, that's like my walk route. And when I walk by and I ask them, "Do you guys need anything?" There'll be this group of kids camped out, kind of sitting up on that hillside, just watching and waiting. And one day I thought, well, I've got all the stuff in my car to carry down there, so I'm just going to call the kids over. And they loved it. They loved walking in with drinks for the team. And yeah, it's wonderful.
yeah, it is great. So what we're thinking is, if they finish on time around April 30th, we're going to have a ribbon cutting. So they'll have the kids on one side of the ribbon, and when that's cut, they can go to town and work that half pipe. Yep, put it to work. So it's going to be a fun day. What do you think, Eric? You like the idea?
For sure. Sounds
Yeah.
very fun.
Yeah, I know your friends are going to love it. Okay, any other questions for Lisa on the skate park? Okay,
I just want to add one thing that
Yeah, Sean.
the skate park has been amazing since 2016. I think it's probably one of the most used things in the park, and been great for the kids, especially in San Anselmo where there's not a lot to do. So I think
Right.
it's been awesome. So,
Yeah. I agree. I
Yeah.
was up at Sebastopol at their skate park last weekend. And I mean, it's a huge skate park, and really it didn't have as many kids using it as we typically have using ours. And the demand will be even greater when all this work is done. So yeah, I agree. And thank you, Lisa, for bringing it to town.
Well, thank you everyone on Park and Rec Commission, because your support of it is just outstanding, and we're very grateful. And I'm always, if anybody ever has questions or concerns or anything, please, you can email me, Sean and Rod, Danielle, everyone has my contact information, but I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for letting me come tonight.
Oh, absolutely. You're welcome anytime.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Lisa. Good night.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Good night, Sean. All right, that brings us to another big project, hugely successful. And I want to tip my hat to Jan Wu, who pulled together all these volunteers for the playground repairs. And it was a tremendous day last Saturday, and I'll let Jan describe it for you. Jan?
Thank you, Rod. I don't deserve the credit. I feel like the town of San Anselmo is amazing, and the volunteers were so eager to be a part of this that it was really just organizing the amazing folks that signed up. But I appreciate your comments, and I had an amazing time in the park on Saturday. It was not only wonderful to be a part of this, it was great to be doing something in person. I joined the commission during COVID, so I see everyone on Zoom, but it was wonderful to see people, staff, as well as council members and fellow commissioners out, and it really felt great. So the pictures are wonderful, and I think they do a better job of sort of capturing the day than anything I can say. We had 100% participation from all volunteers that signed up. People were there from the beginning of their shift until the end, happy, smiling, working really hard. We had lunch brought in from Creekside, which everyone really appreciated. The consultant, if you have not met Ron, I won't even attempt to say his last name. He is completely dynamic when he is on a Zoom call. He's even more dynamic in person. This is him in the hat. And he's amazing. The contractors were fabulous. I can't say enough for what this felt like to be a part of and how much it speaks to the dedication of the community. Everyone was more than ready to start working on this beautiful playground. The first area that was sort of designated as the kickoff was where the photos are taken here by the train, which is for the area for the younger kids. And I think once they dug in a little bit, they found that it was a little bit more involved than what they thought. So a little bit more work was required. Maybe you can see like the tags. There was a color-coded system between red, orange, yellow, and I think once they took some boards off, it was a little bit more decayed than they thought, but nothing that they couldn't handle. Everybody really gave it their all. So I think it was a very successful first day, and we have 4 more to go. So.
Well, and I'll tell you, it has set such a terrific tone. I sent out a thank you email to the volunteers and received several responses saying, I had such a good time. Let me know if there's an opening, and I'm glad to fill in.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, no, it is terrific. So we'll be doing that over the next 4 Saturdays. All is going well so far. We'll just keep up the good work. And also, Danielle, if you could thank Maddie for us for what she did last Saturday, that would be terrific.
Maddie was awesome. AJ was awesome.
AJ
I got
was
to
there.
meet him in person. It was really nice.
Yeah.
I know this week's going to be a little cooler, and I have had more conversations with some of the volunteers about scheduling conflicts and things. So hopefully we'll have an equally dedicated group that will be out, but it was just wonderful. So thank you for letting me do this.
Oh, listen, thanks, Jan. You've done a great job. Anybody have any questions for Jan about progress at the playground? And oh, by the way, I don't know if people saw the IJ yesterday, but there was a photo of some of the volunteers.
Oh, that's
And,
awesome.
and Vance, I think you were there. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, maybe he can't hear me. Vance was
there.
And Vance
Jan
was
there.
Vance was featured in the photograph that was taken.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I had a great
Okay.
time.
Oh, good. Terrific.
I
So
don't know
that-
when, oops, sorry.
Yes.
I don't know when it will be officially asked of everyone, but they are interested to know if anyone has strong feelings on a color scheme once the painting of the playground happens. So Ron asked me to bring it to our group, and you guys can think about that for a while.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to what we have here is under discussion items is volunteer recognition. And I put this on the agenda because when we see what's happening at the playground and we see what's happening at the skate park, these developments at both these locations are a result of involvement by our residents. And we need to come up with a way to say thank you to them, because this is a remarkable undertaking and really is going to result in the transformation of two significant parts of our park. So this is just something to think about. I wanted to put it on the agenda. We might do something like the Memorial Park Volunteer All-Star Team, where we have our website pays recognition to people who've worked on the various projects. We might even do volunteer recognition as part of our agenda at each of our meetings to recognize various volunteers who've worked in various aspects of the park or other parts of areas that we're responsible for. So this is just something for all of you to think about, and we can put it on the agenda at our next meeting, because that will be just about the time that we will be planning a thank you event for all the work that went into the playground. So that then brings us to item number 6, the financial report.
All right. Yeah. 75% of the year has gone by, and the recreation fund is doing better than it was. So we're at 68% of our projected revenues and 55% of our expenditures. I mean, as you know, everything changed. The way we can do business, and still we're very limited in the way we can do business. However, the difference you'll see, which we're finally in the black, which is great. If you look at the table, we are 7% and in the black. And if you look at previous years, you can see that that was much higher in previous years. Still a great success, I would say, by our department to have not only survived COVID, but turn it around. The one thing that you should be aware of is that each year we defer money at the end of the year, and it's for all the camps and classes that are registered for around this time of year, and then happen after July 1 in the next fiscal year. So while you see a positive number there, we'll still have to see how we end the year, whether it's at a deficit or not, depending on the deferred revenue that goes into our next fiscal year. But either way, a win, and you can see things starting to turn around. So So that's good. I was gonna, I'll go a little bit into my staff report and talk about the fact that, right now, things have opened up. Like, they have said that you don't have to have cohort sizes anymore that are limited. Mask wearing during sports play isn't required. There are several options we have out there. Our department has chosen to be very cautious. Everything that we have implemented, we will stay with our spring programs, including baseball, mask wearing during play. I mean, if they're in the outfield, we're letting them pull their masks down, or if they're taking a break. With everything turning around, the date that's been marked is June 15th. Although, a lot of promises have been made about when we're going into wet tier and when things will be truly open. So we're being cautious, very cautious. We've increased our cohort sizes from 14 to 18. We still want to be able to track in case there's any exposures. And we don't really know what that will look like. So we've gone from 14 to 18. And we're still requiring mask wearing, although we're going to really have to revisit that. I feel like it's going to be a very warm summer, and outside play, while it may not be required, we might consider not requiring it outside in the heat during sports play. So that's kind of where we are with guidelines and moving forward. But yeah, we have wait lists. We're still adding classes. People are really ready to get out there, and we're looking forward to a great summer.
Have most of the programs now sold out?
Yeah. Yes, many of them have wait lists, and like 23 Elephants, for example, we're adding classes. We're in the process of adding to that. Increasing cohort sizes is another thing we're doing instead of adding. So if there's a wait list, adding kids into the cohort sizes. So yes.
Okay. If assuming MMWD passed the restrictions tonight, effective immediately, what effect, if any, will that have on our outdoor programs this summer?
So as Rod and I chatted about this a little bit, basically in the summer, usually we have water slides for the summer camp kids, and we won't be able to do that. We were talking about doing sprinkler play and water balloons, and we won't be able to do sprinkler play. Water balloon play is very conservative on water use. So we'll be able to do that. We also got word this week that we'll be able to use Drake's pool on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 4 for our camps. So that's great news. Get the kids in the water, cool them off. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But obviously we're all waiting for those restrictions to come out.
I think my understanding is we're going to see them tomorrow morning. We'll see, and they're pretty severe. But in any event, we've got to deal with this climate change issue. So any questions for Danielle on either the financial report or the programs? I mean, I think you've done a remarkable job. This pandemic has had a tremendous impact on our programs, and your perseverance, I think, has been commendable.
It's our entire team. We've all pitched in.
Well,
really, we have.
It's been a great effort, because it shows, as we've been able to open up somewhat, the overwhelming positive response we've had. So hopefully the governor's right about June 15th. We'll see. I'd love to see it. Any other questions on that? Okay. Let's see. That brings us. Anything further on program updates?
The only other thing I wanted to mention was that Rod and Vance and anyone else who's interested, the Age Friendly Committee they're doing a brainstorming session on Friday this Friday, the 23rd, from 2 to 3 p.m. And they're asking Rod and Vance to attend. I know that, Rod, you've done a lot of committees, so I don't know if we want to ask if there's any other interest or availability. It's kind of an awkward time of day. That's the other thing, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of during my big nap time, you know.
I think I'd like to join Vance in that. You know what? Interestingly, you must have been looking at my calendar because it's about the only hour that I can do something this week. So
Well, we'll send the invite and
Send
we'll
it.
see what you
Do.
can do.
okay, that would be fine. I will try.
Unfortunately, Danielle, I'm in the senior community of Palm Springs right now, so I won't be back until Saturday.
Okay, okay.
But I'll be volunteering Vance for various tasks. I don't want him to feel left out. Okay, so that brings us to future agenda items. And I had a couple. One, I'd like to see us put the volunteer recognition back on the calendar because we'll need to follow up in terms of the skate park and the playground and other ways we might recognize volunteers. And the other is a follow-up. And Danielle, tell me if we're just asking too much because this is something that Ryan has raised and I think is very worthwhile. And that is the bike maintenance classes. Whether we might be able to put something together on that front for the summer. Oh, you're on mute.
So Kevin's working on that. We actually,
Good.
I think we met with Ryan the other day. Our biggest obstacle, I don't know if Ryan wants to make a few comments. Our biggest obstacle right now is finding a location to do kind of like a class outside. Drake told us, no, we can't find a parking lot big enough. School districts really aren't let it. It needs to be during the week after school because that's the only time that the Bike Coalition will teach it. So we're working on it, but we haven't had all the pieces come together yet.
Okay. Ryan, do you think if any of the bike shops might help us with a Saturday or Sunday morning?
Yeah, you know, I think I mentioned to Danielle and it's Brian, right? No.
Kevin.
Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah.
That last year or the year before, some buddies of mine went to the lodge here on Sir Francis Drake, did like a Saturday morning tech session, like, you know, adjusting your derailleur, and it included, you know, a breakfast burrito or something like that. But I think the lodge, and I threw it out to the guys. We go there every Tuesday night after a ride, and so except for tonight. But I threw it out to them, and I think they're just kind of waiting for, you know, more information. But, you know, they have that parking lot in the back that I know if it's a Saturday morning thing, and if it's cool with them and the neighbors, or, you know, maybe not morning, but kind of before their big kind of lunch or beer crowd rush. I would think they would be into it because it's just advertising for them from a bike standpoint and a food and beer standpoint. Sunshine, you know, they have a space. They're technically Fairfax, obviously, but they, you know, they have space between there and the Fair and Sound, what's it called, Mike? Fair and Sound Plaza, I think, where the gym is.
Right.
But, you know, I don't know if they really need to get their word out. They're already crushed by business, you know, I mean, in a good way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I don't know anything about Caesars. You know, I don't know anything about that end of town. But I know that from a, you know, who would gain from not only getting the bike word out, but also getting kind of like their own, you know, potentially side hustle out would be the lodge. Split Rock could be an option too, but again, they're Fairfax and they have, you know, the parking lot and a big indoor space too. But yeah, I mean, if I can get with Danielle and Kevin on the side and see just if I can get some details, Danielle, about like how big a classes the Bicycle Coalition can do, like how much space they need, if people are riding or if we're just kind of watching, you know, how many bike stands, that kind of stuff. I could take it to the either Split Rock because I've met the owner there, and then also the Lodge because I've met the owner there. So,
Okay.
See, I think it would be terrific if we could, even if we did a class, for example, on how to change tires. You know,
Yeah.
and a class on how to adjust brakes and derailleurs.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
a class on just seat adjustment. I mean, all the time you see people riding without the seat properly adjusted, which creates all
Yeah.
kinds of problems for knees.
Yeah.
And then, you know, one on safety, or actually maybe have a safety component as part of these other maintenance classes. I think we'd get a huge draw. I think both from kids and adults, and
Yeah, I
actually
think it'd be
families.
I think it'd be great. And to my, our earlier discussions in the previous months, like, and if every class, kind of had the overarching kind of, here's how you behave as a cyclist in,
Right.
Today's Marin or whatever, I
Right.
think that will go a long way in kind of developing more advocates. I've gone to a couple of the MMWD meetings or listened in, and I do trail work and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of messy out there, as far as like how motorists view cyclists on the road, how cyclists view motorists, how hikers view mountain bikers, how mountain bikers view horses, and blah, all that. It's
Right.
we just all get along,
Right.
kind of thing.
Exactly. And that's why I thought we could tie some of that in to the maintenance classes.
Absolutely.
Just make it, a 5 or 10 minute aspect of each of those classes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Danielle, you and I can catch up separately.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. And I've also reached out to Public Works. Scott is supposed to restart the BPAC committee that helps with educating the public. So that's another side of what we're talking about, but I have followed through on that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
What just out of curiosity, what do we as a town have any kind of restrictions from doing an activity in, like, say, Fairfax, or would we then need to like partner up with Fairfax and to be like a joint, San Anselmo Fairfax thing at, say, the Split Rock or somewhere in Fairfax?
No, we don't have to. I mean, we would probably do our due diligence to reach out to the recreation department and just say, hey, we're doing this, and do you want to be part of it? I mean, we work with them on senior programming and stuff, so
Okay, because I assume they'd probably want to be involved too anyway.
The nice thing, I mean, if we're going to do something in Fairfax, we could involve their Parks and Rec Commission.
Yeah.
Be terrific. Okay. So those are just a couple of items for next month's agenda. Anything further that people would like to discuss or placed on the May agenda? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Stop by the playground, see all the activity, stop by the skate park. You won't believe what you see. And we will meet again in May. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Good night.